My mum and dad still fight now, but they fight over the phone, and often I'm not in the room, but it makes me feel really upset and angry because, I mean, they're supposed to be my parents, and instead they're behaving like 2-year-olds.
They're like trying to make you like love them the most, but you like don't want to. You want to love each parent the same.
My mum found a new guy, and my dad wasn't too happy, so like if he was around, he'd drop me at the bottom of the driveway and make me walk up. And like he'd never say anything, he'd just go, get out of the car and walk up. And stuff like that.
And when you do, won't you tell me what you see?
They feel the weight. They feel the weight of their parents not getting on. And my son, I've been to family therapist with him, and you know, he talks about it like this heavy, heavy rock in his heart that he has to carry when he thinks about his parents not getting on.
I used to be very scared to tell my mum or dad what my family had been saying and what my mum had been saying, so I'd have to keep it all in a secret, and I had to bundle it up.
First year, he was very kind of tense and quick to anger and really quite difficult to deal with, and it was only after he'd gone through that I was able to look back and think, presumably he was upset about us being separated, but I just didn't recognise it at the time, and I don't know how I could not have recognised it.
Separation is really big for children. You know, I've never experienced it before. I hadn't experienced it as a child. So it actually took a lot of learning from my daughter to feel the full impact of the effects on her.
He was faced with that breakup every time he leaves me to go to his father's, and every time he leaves his father to come back. It's like reliving that every time that happened. Whereas for us, you know, we've moved on. Well, for me, I've moved on. I've made the decision. I've left. But he still, and I hadn't realised.
For years, my daughter was harbouring this secret longing that mum and dad would get back together. And, you know, there can be all sorts of things sitting there telling her that it's not going to happen. But in her mind and in her heart, she wanted it to happen, and that continued for a number of years.
But the 6-year-old actually really struggled, and he was suicidal, especially when he was 7. I went through a very difficult period with him, and he used to say he was going to throw himself out the window because he didn't want to live anymore. And I sought help, my psychological counselling and help at that stage. But it was really a question of talking to him about it, not forcing him to talk about it if he didn't want to, reassuring them constantly that I loved them, that their father loved them, that we would both always be their parents. I mean, I must have repeated that a million times, that they would always be our children, that just because Daddy and I didn't love each other anymore and weren't together anymore, parents love their children differently, and we wouldn't ever stop loving them.
There isn't any easy answers. But the first answer is, and everyone says this, and it seems a logical one, put your kids first. That's fantastic advice. Everything you do, you have to try to concentrate on remembering that you've said that and that's your aim. A lot of things can be thrown at you in the meantime, and you get carried away or emotional. And of course it's very hard to do all this without getting emotional. But you do have to try to lose the emotion and concentrate on the job at hand. And if you do that, at the end of the day, I'm sure your kids will be really grateful. And they'll be a lot better kids for it.
parents need to be parents, like they need to look after the kids, not the kids need to look after the parents, because sometimes after a breakup the parents are like a wreck and the kids have to cope with looking after them and then also getting on with what's happened, like losing one of their parents.
I think it's really important for parents when they are sad or angry, which you will be when you're going through a separation, unless you're not human. I think everyone gets very sad and angry, to try and make sure that you express that with another adult rather than telling your children about it, because it'll only burden them and make them feel worse, and they don't need that. They've got enough sadness themselves just from the fact that they're not living with their mum and dad anymore.
I can tell you that it makes a child feel real uncomfortable if they're being a messenger boy, because like you're telling the parents, the other parent, what they really don't want to hear sometimes, and then that can cause the breakup or an argument, and then you feel all guilty.
I've tried to keep issues between my ex-partner and myself separate from parenting. And that's been one of the hardest things to do.
Kids sort of just need to know that their parents are there for them, like, and even if they can't do one humongous thing for them, they need to know that even the littlest thing matters to kids.
Yeah, they sometimes tried me to get to say how I felt, but I didn't really want to say that I didn't feel very happy, because then that would probably upset them.
Sometimes you have to have meetings, where you get everyone gets together and have a meeting and sort things out, because sometimes, your children being children, I'll tell one parent one thing and another parent another thing, and that whole divide thing again, they'll divide it all up, and so then sometimes you've got to have a meeting, you all sit down and get around the table and talk it all out, and and some interesting things come of that.
My dad does this funny thing, he says, but your views are noted, or something like that, and that means that it's going to be put down in the last page of his notebook of things to do.
And Mum wouldn't let me ring Dad, so I felt sort of like sad.
You have to accept the other parent for what they are and work with what you've got. That's what you just have to. And the sooner you come to accept that the other parent is whatever it is that however it is that they're going to go forward, the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can get along with making sure that your children get as much as they possibly can from each parent, and whatever that is that they need in order to grow up happily and healthily.
My parents always go to court over every little thing they do, and whenever we go to our parents' house, me and my brother, we always have to be careful of what we say. Like, if we say something that, like, oh, we were really tired when Mum put us to bed at 10:30, they'll use it against us in the court, or they use it against our other parent.
You suddenly find that you're in the system and people have already made decisions on your children's behalf, and you just don't know where you're going. And it's not a good time, because you, first of all, you're trying to work out why I guess this happens to a lot of people, why your marriage is broken up in the first place. And at the same time, you've got maybe non-access to the children that you'd spent time with the day before.
Although you break up, you've got to, really still parent with your children. And unfortunately, what happens in court is, with lawyers, they tend to pull you apart, and you tend to think you're doing well with your children, but you're not. You're actually trying to get them away from your ex and, what have you, and it's all a bit, it's disturbing for them.
Well, it's mostly about where I'm going to be, like who I'm going to be with at the time, and it like makes me feel like it's actually kind of, it's a stupid thing to argue over, because like they could easily work it out. They could just like sit down and talk it over and like work it out, but like whenever they try to talk to each other, normally it usually gets into an argument.
But it's also like huge like money waste. Like my mum had to save heaps just on the court, which is like just a small thing, just in where like a phone call could decide that as well.
It's an adversarial process. It's not a coming together, bringing together and looking at common ground. It's just I'm right and you're wrong, and life's not like that.
The court is a long and arduous proposition for anyone who wants to go to court and try and deal with it there. Yes, you will get what is called justice, but whether you end up in the end thinking it's justice is another thing.
Parents should be should tell you what's going to happen, but not let all the stress on you, so you get all stressed, like that day at school or something. You get really stressed and you can't concentrate because you're so scared what's going to happen and if what the outcome's going to be of the decision made at court.
I feel sad that I can't see my dad on the weekend because we only see him once a week.
I would like to see both parents, evenly.
It was time for my youngest son to start school, and his father and I couldn't agree on the school that he was going to go to. And we couldn't agree, so we ended up having to go through the court process. We didn't actually get into court. We ended up managing to come to an agreement in front of a judge, but in a judge-led mediation, I think it's called, or something like that. So it's the sort of step before going to court, which was really good that we managed to come to the agreement then.
So I'd always be pushing for that judge-led mediation, we'll call it. And for me, that was the answer. And since that point, we have got on far better. We've cooperated far better. It's to both our benefits to make it work. The children are happier. The children now know that when they go to mum's, that they're going to come back to dad's, and when they go to dad's, that they're going to end up back at mum's, whereas before they were never quite sure what was going to happen.
My ex-partner insisted that we work towards each having him half of the week, which was a really good thing, and that's exactly what we've got, and it's been sort of nearly 5 years. But it was really difficult to get that, or to allow that to be established, because it meant that I had half the week without Mackenzie. And that was really hard, but I knew that him having a father who wanted to have him half the time and not just 1 or 2 days a week was a really good thing for Mackenzie.
Mother, call to your children and bring them inside. Father, teach well your children, fill them with pride.
making sure that you meet their basic physiological needs, so making sure they eat well and they get enough sleep and all that kind of thing, providing them with the security of a home. Also, I think it's really important to look after yourself too, not make yourself into a martyr. So even if even if the other parent isn't going to have a regular time with the children, so you know you're going to get time out, somehow or other you have to find some way of making sure that you get some time out so that you are a happier, stronger, more relaxed person, because if you're not, you can't parent very well.
It was when I was being supported the most from other people that I actually was able to stop and fully recognise what was going on with my daughter and be there for her and listen and just do whatever I needed to do and be with her.
I used to talk to my grandma, and she used to help me a lot, and she used to tell me what I could do and help me through it. And then if she had found a really big problem, she'd tell my mum, but often she wouldn't have to, because she'd give me enough courage to tell my mum or my dad, and it used to help a lot to have my granny to help me figure things out.
I find if you talk to your really good friends, but they've got to be really, really good friends, then you can sort of trust them not to let some of your secrets loose. But don't tell anybody else apart from your really good friends, because I've had a few incidents where some of my friends have actually let secrets slip, and my parents have got quite angry about that.
I think animals, especially dogs, are very good to talk to because they won't tell anybody, but you can feel like they understand you.
One thing that I've always found is it's very important for my boys to be able to keep in touch with their dad whenever they want to be able to call him, and I think it's really important for them to be able to talk to them, especially to talk to him, especially as they're getting older. My oldest one's now 14, knowing that he can speak in private to his dad. It's good. They're boys. They need to have their dad, and they need to have that man's input.
What I want most here, and what I believe is important for my daughter, is for her to have an ongoing relationship with her dad. And I knew that that's what he wanted too.
The breakup was between his father and I, not Micah. And I felt that Micah needed to have that relationship, for them to develop.
I watched a lot of guys walk out and that's it, not having any contact with their kids. And to watch them 10 years later try and regain that contact was just a joke. Yeah, it was never going to happen. So I suppose for me I'd seen that with friends, so I already knew not to go down that track.
I think once I accepted that no matter what, that was still her father, and that if she wanted to see him then that was her choice. And, so once I'd done that, I think it made things easier.
Because the children were young, I tried very much in the beginning to have an open door policy which was really hard for both of us, I think, where it was okay for Rod to come around and see the kids because they were so little.
Yeah, it was hard, but at the end of the day, it made for a better relationship with my kids, being able to drop around. Because if I hadn't been able to, they were too young to do the phone conversation.
Yeah.
And as they've got older, I've been able to lean off the dropping around and have the conversation over the phone. But in the early stages, that was really important that they, and they also get to see us interact.
I was just sitting there with 4 or 5 guys talking, and at the end of it, we all had the same thing in mind, We all had different views on how to get there, and we all had different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, all those guys loved their kids. And they were all filling their pants, thinking that they weren't going to have any time with them.
There was a Staying Connected program that my daughter and I attended, and that was just incredible. That heralded a whole new change for us. And that was about my daughter recognising that she wasn't the only person involved in this, that there are other children out there who are feeling like she's feeling. And also giving her, it was like a catalyst for us to start talking about it. Because up until then, I hadn't managed to quite find the right words or the right way to discuss this huge issue of mum and dad not living together or not being together with her.
It wasn't just about me, and it wasn't just about my ex-wife. It was about the children, and that really, started to mend the problems that we'd had.
They don't really have arguments because they just realised ages ago that they had too much arguments, so they split up and they're just really friendly to each other.
It's been some horrible times.
There's been some good
We've
screaming
had
matches.
some real doozies, and I've got in the car and I'm like this, and the kids are going, you're right, I'm going, oh my god, cigarette.
And I think more that's sort of come about because we haven't communicated.
Yeah, we've kind of let it get to
I've got to
blow.
the point where I've held on to stuff and held on to stuff,
Yep.
and then I've just gone, rah, I'm male, hear me roar.
And I think I'm like that too, and I'm like that, I let things build up. I'm getting better, but I let things build up, so when I'm ready to say something, it comes flying out.
I started talking to my ex-wife a lot more about the children, and she started talking to me a lot more about the children, and I think children like that. And I just think it freed everything up. I mean, my children, I don't live far away from my children, and they'd just come around and start seeing me, and it just became a lot easier and they just ring their mother up, and their mother would say, yeah, that's okay, just as long as I know where you are. It wasn't the strict court thing that I had imposed on me. It just freed that up, and so everyone was a lot happier. Children especially, how things were going.
And I think for the kids, like we've spent Christmases together and that, and it's been hard, or just Christmas Day time, mealtime and that together, and it's been hard, but it's been really worth it when somebody says to the children at the end of the day, what's been the best part of the day, and they say it's been having the family together. It's not about any present or anything, it's sort of just about having the family together. Yeah, so doing little things like that if you can.
One of the things I've learned is that the issues that are present in the relationship prior to separating don't go away when you separate. In fact, they probably intensify. So they're going to be hanging around for a long time. So it's taken a long time to get through some of those things. But I think we're at a point now where we're a lot more comfortable with, this is my ex-partner and I, with being parents and nothing else.
There's reasons why I'm separated from my ex-partners. It's, there's no way we should still be together, but I don't hate them. I used to love them, and they're both good people, and we've got these fantastic kids. And giving up the angry bits means that we can have the good bits.
Well, for kids, I think it's good not to take it out on yourself, because I've done that sometimes to me, and it just makes the problem worse. So yeah, don't take it out on yourself or other people.
They should listen to the child and explain to them what's going to happen and ask whether there's anything wrong with that and if it's good or not, and try and see the child's point of view and be understanding to what they say.
The kid just wants you to remain a normal parent even if they can't see you all the time. And they need your love, and they just need love.
Today